So welcome to today's daily news analysis. As always, we are referring to the Hindu newspapers, Delhi edition. So first of all, the good news, we have a new president, Draupadi Murmu, belonging from the tribal community. And thereby, there is a lot of developments like celebrations from the tribal community. Then Prime President has also invoked tribal traditions. So traditional greeting of Johar to ending it with the poem of Odia Saint Bhim Boy. Right. So see, we get the personality associated with the tribal. So tribals. So this can be important from the point of view of GS1. Then congratulations from different quarters. Xi Jinping also sends regards. So Xi Jinping is the president of the Chinese, right? So yeah. Okay. Next, with Myanmar, internal politics of Myanmar actually. So in Myanmar, there is a military dictatorship, and the government over there is known as the Janta government. So Janta is not like Hindi Janta, Janta meaning people. No, this is basically military dictatorship. So what has come to light is that people who have been accused of dissent or who are critical of this regime over here, they have been executed. And there is a probability that more leaders would also be charged with execution. Right, so on some ground or the other, this has taken place. Now, why is this important? First of all, Myanmar is our neighbor. So something that is happening in our neighborhood is of concern to us. But more importantly, India was looking forward, traditionally India says that we do not recognize the government of this military dictatorship or Janta government. But India was looking towards a pragmatic policy, and India wants to have connect with Myanmar. So even if it is with the Janta government, that would do. But with the news coming in of these executions, it makes it difficult for India to engage. And likewise for the other countries also, like US, etc. Okay. No bill to stop attacks on hospital. So, if you were aware, some time back, about 3-4 years back, there were incidents of lot of incidents that come to news where patients, aggrieved patients, they had beaten up doctors or they had engaged in violence against the hospital. So that had taken place. And in light of that, a lot of protests had taken place amongst the doctors and the medical community. Okay, so that had taken place. And the government also said that we need to bring in a law to protect the well-being of the doctors. So that was to be brought in. Okay. So apparently this law, Epidemic Diseases Act, was to be amended, and it provided that people who have indulged in violence against the medical community, they shall face a jail term. So a jail term, or they may be imprisoned for up to 5 years, right? So that can also take place. So imprisoned for 5 years and also 5 lakh rupee fine. Okay. Now there is an internal security risk. So we know that India and Sri Lanka are very, very close. Geographically speaking, the distance is not very, very much, around 10 to 20 kilometers. So one can easily take a boat ride and come to India. And we are hearing that because of this crisis that is taking place in Sri Lanka, people, especially Tamil community, are moving towards the Indian side. Okay. Now a news has come that a Polish man, a person of Polish origin, had come to India. Now this has alerted the Central Intelligence Agencies. There is also concern that there were Chinese in the Sri Lanka. So the Chinese nationals could also intrude into India from the crisis head nation. So that is a problem. Okay. Besides what is not mentioned in the news, what is not given over here, is that see, we may have a refugee crisis also, because refugees coming from Sri Lanka and moving into India. So we already have Tamil refugees who have to be repatriated, who have to be sent back to Sri Lanka. So this crisis may also take place. Then obviously some bad elements may also come in and they may create insurgency in our country. Or they may use this against the Sri Lankans. So which is, either ways, it is not a good thing. Okay, so now we have city news. This is Delhi specific. Ward limitation. Panel to carve out 250 seats. Okay. In Delhi, local body elections are to take place. Right? So local body elections are to take place. Now, this time, new constituencies, constituencies are being delimited. So these constituencies at the level of urban local bodies, these are known as ward. So these wards are delimited. Delimited means the boundaries of these wards are being defined. Okay. Now the question arises from polity perspective, who will decide or who will delimit the boundaries? Now, for the purpose of these local bodies, it is not very, very clear. But when it comes to elections, general elections like that of the parliament, Lok Sabha elections, or for the state elections, state legislative assembly, state Vidhan Sabha, for that, there is a delimitation commission, as has happened in the case of Jammu and Kashmir. So with Jammu and Kashmir being a union territory, it was a full-fledged state, then it became a union territory, so bifurcated. So a new delimitation commission was formed by an act of parliament, right? So this is a statutory body, so by an act of parliament, and this commission will do surveys and they will define the boundaries of each constituency. So at this level of center parliament or at the level of state legislative assembly, we know. But here we really do not know, because every state has some different arrangement. So some states have a delimitation commission created via an act of the state legislature. Naturally, it is in the state, so state will enact it. In some states, it is actually the state election commission which is defining the delimitation processes. Okay, so this is it. So there is no clear-cut thing as such. So therefore, it's unlikely we may expect a question on this also. Now here, since it is Delhi, Delhi is the capital also, there is control of the center over here. So Parliament has enacted a law. So we have central government notified Delhi Municipal Corporation Act. Okay. Contacts of monkeypox case have no symptoms. Okay, that's a good thing. Now these are state news over here. So quickly, Rajasthan presents United Front in water row with MP fine. So interstate river water dispute. Woman alleges Dio hired for her to frame man for love jihad. Okay. Political news. Godavari issue. Once again, it is there in news. So fresh floods in Godavari create panic. So we have to simply, I'm just stating this. We have to prepare this from the point of view of disaster management, flood mitigation is a very, very important topic that we need to do. You can, in addition, you can refer to the National Disaster Management Authority guidelines. Or we can actually make a video also on this. Okay, so that's separate. Punjab, Delhi, plans soaps. Soaps means kind of an incentive or a subsidy for farmers to stop stubble burning. Okay, I hope you know what is stubble. So let me just show you. I have a very detailed analysis on this actually. Oh, farm stubble. Yeah. So when the farmers cut grains, when they cut the grains, for example, Yeah, see this over here. You see the top over here of the plant. This is wheat, wheat, rice. This is the grain part. So this is chopped off. This is cut. Therefore, it is known as harvested. So whatever remains over here at the bottom level is the stubble. Naturally, this is not of value to the farmers, so they tend to burn this. Now in Delhi, Delhi situation, what is it that in winter months, typically we have more pollution and farming takes place around the region of Delhi. So Punjab, right? So we have Punjab, Haryana, Western Uttar Pradesh. So all of them, when they start burning the stubble, when they start burning the whatever grasses was left for cultivation of rice or paddy. So for that, when they start burning, the pollution comes and it somehow it tends to concentrate towards the Delhi region. This happens when there is a low pressure area. Okay, so this happens. Okay, now what they want to do is what the Delhi government has been working, and since Delhi and Punjab both have Aam Aadmi Party, so they are saying that we will give some subsidies to the farmers. So about rupees 2,500 rupees per acre would be given to the farmer so that they remove the stubble and they don't burn the stubble. So that is the idea. Rest, I have a very detailed analysis on this. I'll make a video and upload that as well. Okay. NIV testing samples for patient with monkeypox symptoms. So NIV, don't have to worry. This is simply a institute. So National Institute of Virology, Pune. Now we have a state this thing, so we can look at it from the point of view of governance. So the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh is saying that publicize anti-corruption helplines. Right, so in the government department mentioned that there is a anti-corruption headlines, mentioned some norms for anti-corruption. So that should be there. So that will be naturally it will create an element of fear. Citizens will also be empowered to contact people, to contact vigilance, etc. when they witness corruption activities. Right, so this should be that. Besides talking about checking liquor stores and all those things. Yeah. So this article I have already. Okay, I'll share it on the Telegram also. So this is about 175th birth anniversary of Ravi Verma, Raja Ravi Verma, who was born into the aristocracy at Kilimanur in the erstwhile Travancore region. Okay, so this has happened. So 175th birth anniversary. So his brother, his family, they have said that how can it be his brother? So somebody in his family has said that he should be conferred with Bharat Ratna for his contributions in the field of art. Right, so on the field of art, it should be done, which is the highest civilian award in the country. Why? And I'm giving you the sequence. This can be used for your answer writing also. Okay. Because his contributions in art and culture, prepare a short note, 150 words. Okay. So he basically, Raja Ravi Verma, painted God, right? So he's painted God, and so he gave a human perspective or a human form to the gods. And most of the things, most of the images of God that we see today, mostly in the calendars, etc. So these were actually painted by Raja Ravi Verma, right? So it was his depictions that have been, God has been shown into. So these are still used. These are still a source of inspiration. So that is why. So they inspire generations and exert influence on art, architecture, culture, religion, textiles, etc. So with this depiction of God in the human form, it is said, at least his family is saying, that the painter democratized art and popularized the characters of myths, because naturally there were characters, but now these characters have been painted. So when it comes into the painting form, everybody can see, otherwise everybody has to read. And reading, what should I say? People don't read. Right. So with this, the popular culture, the tradition which was in the literary form that was able to come into the illustration form or in the painted form. So it was democratized in that way. And his visualizations have inspired even the subsequent generations, even the present times. He changed the images of God and goddesses from the supernatural to the human form. Like you just have to write till here actually. If you can just do that, you will automatically be around 120 words, which is good enough to score good marks. For this, it's a chances because such topics are students are generally not prepared. It's not really an expected one also, but sometimes UPSC does ask such questions. So for here, 120 will also suffice. Okay, let's look at the economy business editorial and the opinion section. So first one, I'm not doing this again and again. This is coming. So India must step up research and prepare adequate defenses against monkeypox. That's a given, right? Isolation, tracking, and all that should be done. Okay. A global order caught up in swirl of chaos. So what is happening? Specifically, the Ukraine-Russia conflict has taken place. And we can see two things. One is that the global order means the global institutions, the global arrangement. So they have not been able to keep the conflicts in check. This is Ukraine-Russia conflict. There are many other conflicts that are taking place. The Syria conflict, right? Conflicts in Africa. So they are taking place. So world order is not able to keep up with that. So this article is about this. In fact, we had covered this topic earlier. So I'm not doing this. We can actually take up this article separately also. So there was an issue of intergenerational equity in world governance also. So that aspect was also talked about. So basic issue over here would be one is the inadequacies of the world governance structures, need for reforms in these institutions. For example, the UN, then other world governance institutions like the IMF, the World Bank, etc. They have they have the predominance of the West. They have the predominance of the West over here. And most of them are not looking at solving the problems, but it is actually looking at furthering the interest of the West. So basically, it's this only over here. You can read this actually. You can read this article. It will help you. Reform bail law. There is an explainer section in the news. So you can, we'll do it from there. It was there. That is why this opinion is mentioned. Yeah. Backsliding on climate action. So, okay. You know, this Ukraine war has taken place recently. So because of the Ukraine crisis, Ukraine war, the fuel has become more expensive. Overall economy has gotten affected. And what we are seeing is that many of these developed countries like Europe, US, they are stepping up coal usage or coal-based power plants. So rather than using clean energy or at least cleaner energy like natural gas, so these are being cut down and the emphasis has gone back to the coal. And this could very well be a reason for all the power cuts that you see in the present times because the coal, if overall demand for coal increases, India's energy is coal dependent, so the supply of coal comes down. Okay, so coal and I mean the unclean energy, they are moving towards this. And this is coming at a time when these countries over here, they were saying that we need to intensify the climate change response. So they had said that as part of its 2030 Paris Agreement commitments. So 2030 Paris Agreement commitment. So what did it say? It said that the goal is that we need to cut down fossil fuels or greenhouse gas emissions in such a way that we are able to limit the overall global warming to less than 2 degrees Celsius at pre-industrial level. So that was the idea, right? So less than 2 degrees Celsius. And best would be if we can keep it at 1.5 degrees Celsius. And by the way, yes, I think 2, 3 days back, there was this news article which said that global warming is already at 1.1 degree Celsius above pre-industrial level. So we have to limit this at 1.5 degrees Celsius. So that is the goal. So for that, each country has to make certain commitments that they will not use, they will reduce the fossil fuels, they will move into renewable energy, right? So all they will use afforestation will take place, deforestation will come down, sustainable farm practices will take place, all that. So that would be done with the goal of limiting the climate change. But all these assurances that were made very soon, not even like recently, the Glasgow summit had taken place for the climate change talks. And they were talking about intensify the commitments that had come under the Paris deal. So Paris summit meeting actually took place in 2015, and the target was set for 2015 to 2030. Now the Glasgow summit was to intensify the same. The commitments that each country had made that had to be intensified. So not even a year has passed, and the US have actually backtracked on that. Right. So that has taken place. Okay. No room for logophobia. So I was wondering what is logophobia. So this recently we had parliamentary, some terms have been banned, Snoopgate, Jumla GV, all those things. Okay. Ashamed, abused. So it's kind of like a tag that has been associated with a certain political party, a certain political leader. So tag or logo basically, right? So with which some we depict somebody, for example, logo of certain bank or something. So we see that and we are able to, okay, find this person, this logo is there, so this company would be there. So likewise, some terms have come to be attributed to certain political leaders. So there is no room for this thing, logophobia. This should not be done. So this is a critique of this uh, basically this ban should not be there. This restriction on using this term should not be there. There should be no room in a democracy. Not really relevant exam point of view. It's just that some curiosity was there. Okay, this is important. This is very important. This is GS3. GS3, we can have talk from the point of view of space, science and technology, and also economics of space. Okay. So let's go with the flow of this article only. So we know that in India, in world actually, all across the world, the space sector is being dominated by the government-run agencies. For example, in India's case, it is ISRO. In America's case, it is NASA. Now there are talks that why not? We have developed the capacity of going to space and all those things. Why not create a platform that the private sector can participate? For example, in US, we have a company known as SpaceX. So SpaceX is launching satellites. It is launching satellites. It is transporting things to the International Space Station, or it is actually aiding the programs of NASA. So it is being done by the private sector. And likewise, more and more companies are being promoted in USA. Likewise, India also feels that it's high time that we also use the ISRO as a platform and allow the private sector to participate. Right, so that is the thing. It's very simple. This would mean better utilization of space resources. So ISRO is presently government, but when a private sector entity comes, when it makes an investment, investments are made for return. Right, the idea is to draw return. They will look to create more and more opportunities to earn revenue. And when they're looking at more opportunities, they will have to invest in innovation. They will try to address problems or issues that have not been addressed and that have a commercial value. So therefore, idea is to promote the private sector to leverage the space economy. And there are a lot of things that can be done. And the private sector, more and more people, when they do it, that will be done more efficiently. So that is the idea. So that is what is happening. The Principal Secretary Advisor, Ajay Kumar Sood, right? So advisor to the government on scientific aspect. So they're saying that we are going to have our own Indian companies like that of the United States, SpaceX. So that will take place. Okay. And for that, we are creating a new space policy. So a new policy is coming up and you should keep an eye on this thing. Okay. Now, why is the development in the space sector important? Now, please note that it is only talking about development in the space sector, right? So first of all, it will aid connectivity for climate change, for internet connectivity. So there is a lot of prospects over here. Then for weather forecasting, for early warning solutions, natural disasters, earthquake, floods are taking place. So satellite can play a role, and also for the defense sector. Right, so that is the thing. And when we look at the space sector, it is not just rockets, it is or aerospace. It is also about IT hardware and telecom sector. Now, where does India stand in the global space market? So India's, obviously we hear a lot about ISRO, but and we are the 6th largest space economy. But at the present moment, our share is only 3.6% when it comes to world space tech companies, and we need to increase that. So our India space industry has been valued at $7 billion in 2019, and the idea is that it grows to $50 billion. And you know, when it says it plans to go by that, this will definitely come in the policy also. Okay. Next, we have the budgetary allocation. So our budgetary allocation is nothing as compared to US. So in USA, it is around $41 billion in 2021 for NASA. But in India's case, it is only 13,700 crores. Now you see this in billion, it is in rupees, right? So in dollar terms, it is at $67.2 million. So this is nowhere near. Now, what is the government doing for promoting the private sector in space? Or rather, what is ISRO doing? So within ISRO, there is an agency known as the IN-Space. So this agency is created with the idea of promoting, authorizing, and licensing private players to carry out space activities. Whatever technologies, whatever know-how is there, that will be percolated to the private sector or handed over to the private sector, if possible, at free of cost. So that is the idea. So from there on, the private sector can build on. And you can actually correlate this with the telecom sector also. So initially we had the BSNL, MTNL, and later we had the Airtel, etc. So they used the infra of the government and then they moved ahead, right? So that could also take place. Then there is also an agency known as the New Space India Limited, which is to transfer the mature technologies developed by ISRO to the Indian industries. So this will, if the participation of commercial private sector takes place, it will help spur up investment and expertise. And the government in the parliament had said, Dr. Singh, forgetting Jitendra Singh, he had said that the idea is that we should create a level playing field for the private sector companies in satellite. And whenever they say private, don't write this in exam when they say private level playing field. But when you talk about sharing technology, etc., it is not really a level playing field. You are actually pushing them to do better, which is required. Okay, the latest guidelines on arrest and bail orders. Okay. So recently, and maybe this can be asked, like this case which was there in news is associated with which of the following? So recently, Supreme Court in Satyendra Kumar Satinder Kumar Antil versus CBI issued a set of guidelines. Now, there are two things. When Supreme Court issues, there are guidelines and there are directives. Directives have to be implemented naturally, directives, directions, and guidelines. Guidelines are like a framework. Okay, guidelines for what? For the police and the law enforcement agencies. So, one it said is that arrest should be made after some thought process. It should not be, you have the powers of arrest, so you just arrest people, because arrest brings loss of reputation and esteem. It curtails not just one's freedom and casts one's life forever. It is obviously leading to humiliation also. One's reputation is harmed for the life. So one arrest has to be done in a thoughtful process. And furthermore, it had brought in some guidelines for the reforming of the bail process. So one is arrest. So when a person has been arrested, right? So when a person has been arrested, so that has to be done thoughtfully, right? With discretion. And the other thing is, when a person is arrested, they can ask for bail, so they can come out of the jail. So that is also there. So the Supreme Court in this has streamlined certain the grant of bail process. So they are saying that a new bail act should be brought in to streamline the grant of bails. So one thing is that the bail application that should not be any insistence of a bail application. So person filing a bail application, bail should be automatically be given. And the matters of bail, if bail application is given, it should be heard within a period of 2 weeks. Sometimes it takes too long a time period. Okay. Now, insistence on bail application is also important because there are large number of under trials in our country, and many of them are from the underprivileged backgrounds. They do not have the legal aid and assistance. That is the problem in our country. So with the insistence on bail application, many of these under trials continue to remain in the prison. So that will help. Then for anticipatory bail, you don't really have to do this actually. So anticipatory bail, so for that period of 6 weeks, it should be taken up. Right, so this is it. And for under trials, the Apex Court to identify under trials who cannot comply with the bail conditions. Naturally, so that them should be automatically be given bail at the present moment. Okay, I missed this point. So Satinder Kumar Antil versus CBI. And these guidelines are an extension to the Arnesh Kumar versus the state of Bihar. So whatever guidelines were given by the Supreme Court here, Satinder Kumar is an addition to that. So this is again important. And you see, this case has taken place recently, 2021, July 11th. This case is in 2014, still being quoted. So this is naturally important and can be asked. You should keep this in mind, right? For police reforms, you can quote this. And for police reforms or criminal justice reforms, you can quote this, and also for your prelims. Okay, let me just zoom out. Yeah. This is political news. Don't support corruption. Country ideology, society come before. Modi tells opposition. Okay. Yeah. So same. I said tribal community celebrating the first tribal becoming the president of the country. Unfortunate accident, right? So these are the news over here. Okay. Z Titan security grip. Okay, so next, President Z has been able to extend his powers actually. So now he is to ensure that he sustains the next term also, he is tightening the grip over the security. In UK, we know that Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss are aspiring to be the prime minister. Voting are taking place in the Tory party or in the Conservative party of the British, right? So they are taking place. So it's about that. So Rishi Sunak, who was earlier soft on China, has taken a hard stand on China because, yeah, political reasons. Okay, business news. Tata Steel Q1 net profit declines. Okay, fine. So steel sector profit has declined. Why? Because of rising costs, because of inflation. And besides, what other issues that the company is facing? And this is also indicative of what problems are there in the economy. So rising interest rates, naturally because of inflation, the Reserve Bank of India had increased the repo rate. So because of that, if the RBI increase rates, naturally the bank rate will also increase. The rate at, not the bank rate, the rate at which the banks are giving out loans. So that will also increase. Right. So the cost of capital is increasing. Then there are supply chain issues. Then curbs on China, imports from China. So these are certain factors because of which the cost is increasing. So profit, if we see, it's revenue, the sales that they are doing minus the cost. So cost is increasing. And that we have been actually been talking about, that a competitiveness is undermined when inflation and currency depreciation takes place. Okay. Then we have the chief economic advisor, right? So then, and the member of the Economic Advisory Council, they have backed RBI's use of forex reserves to stabilize rupee. So what is happening? RBI has certain dollars with it, about $600 billion. So RBI will sell $100 billion. It will remove $100 billion, sell and buy rupees with that. So with that case, the demand for dollar should come down and demand for rupee has been increasing because RBI is buying rupees. So this should stabilize the dollar, right? So that is there, dollar rupee exchange rate. Okay. So this is it.